Hey everyone, it's Saber. Today I'll be going over the changes made to Ivysaur in Project Plus, and explaining how each change differs from the character as she exists in Project M 3.6, as well as how the new iteration of the character may play differently than she does in Project M right now. For each change, I'll show you examples from both 3.6 and P+, to illustrate what's different and how it's important, if it is at all. Clips from 3.6 will use my green custom Ivysaur skin, while P+ clips will be recorded using the vanilla black Ivy skin, just to keep things visually distinct. So with that said, let's get right into it. First, Ivysaur's Jab 1, Jab 2, and Forward Smash all clank properly now. In Project M 3.6, these moves did not clank, which meant that if you attempted to jab through a clankable move or projectile, like, say, Lucario's Aura Sphere, Ivysaur would simply get hit. The second minor change applied to Ivysaur is that they swapped the damage done on her down smash from the sweet spot to the sour spot. In 3.6, if you hit someone with the hitboxes closest to Ivysaur, they would do 14%, and if you hit them with the tipper hitboxes, it would do 12%. However, every other move that she has does more damage at the tipper, so they just swapped those, so that now the sour spot does 12%, which is the hits closest to her, and the sweet spot is now at the tipper, which does 14%. Again, this is really more of a quality of life thing, but it does help a little bit with spacing edge guards with down smash, because it means that you don't need to get as close to the ledge and risk getting hit in order to get the strongest possible hitbox. The last straightforward change was a buff to Ivysaur's shield size. It went from 6.50 to 7.15 in terms of max shield size. You can see the difference. Right now I have it frozen so that you can see what max shield size looks like in both versions. And this is just really important because it allows Ivy to hold shield a little bit longer before risking getting poked. Because her out of shield options are relatively lacking, it's important for Ivy to be able to hold shield when being pressured and be able to pick the correct moment that she tries to get out of shield with either a counterattack like a nair or commonly just a roll or a wave dash. But if you're also risking getting shield poked as soon as you hold shield, then her options become much more limited. So this will just help with her being able to play the defensive game more patiently. Forward tilt got improved substantially from 3.6. In 3.6, you can see that, as I'm doing right now, it's very easy for opponents to fall out of the move or just to pass through Ivysaur. It's super easy to DI through her, ASDI through her. SDI is barely even necessary, but you can do that as well. And it just makes the move really punishable and inconsistent to use. In P+, they made it so that it has less hit lag, which makes it more difficult to SDI, and it also has hitboxes added behind her that make it so that the opponent, if they do get through her, they're at least now getting launched. They don't just end up sitting behind her and out of hit stun while Ivysaur is completing the move. This makes F-Tilt a more effective zoning tool because it's quick, frame 4, does a decent amount of damage. It is now much less risky to use because people won't randomly teleport through her or just not really get hit properly and be able to punish Ivysaur on hit, which is what was happening in 3.6. So that's a big improvement for her and allows her to skirmish in close quarters much more effectively without committing to moves like dash attack. Ivysaur's grabs also got buffed pretty significantly compared to 3.6. Her standing grab will now begin on frame 12 instead of frame 4 and will be active for 3 frames instead of 2. This allows her to not only grab things that were previously fully safe on shield or neutral, but also catch people more successfully when they attempt to dash away, or just in situations where only having grab active for 2 frames made it whiff. Her dash grab will begin on frame 11 instead of frame 12, and had its range significantly increased. Dash grab previously was and is now tied for Ivysaur's fastest grab option, and the range increase makes it a really strong tool in neutral that allows her to lunge forward and grab people to get combos started. And finally, her pivot grab is also significantly faster. It'll now start frame 11 instead of frame 13, so tied with dash grab, and is active for a total of 4 frames now, compared to 2 in 3.6. This means that it's going to be much easier to catch people with pivot grab, because it's both faster and will stay out for significantly longer than it did before. Combined, these buffs make it so that Ivy is much better at actually connecting with her grab, be it because of the increased range, increased active frames, or better frame data that will let her get her brutal combos going off of grab setups. The last set of changes that Ivysaur received revolve around Solar Beam and how it charges. First, Solar Beam got a damage nerf. The strong hit of Beam now does 22 damage instead of 25, and the lingering hit, which it turns to after a few frames of being out, does 19 instead of 22. So overall, the Beam gets significantly weaker. However, it still kills very early. It's still a super move, just a slightly weaker one. And it now has infinite range. The reason behind this is to avoid, it had a limited range in 3.6, and that meant that even on legal stages, it would be fully possible to have a beam combo that should work, and then have it just stop right before them, which was infuriating for Ivy players. So now the beam will go infinitely, but it is slightly weaker. We also revamped how the beam charging system works. Instead of needing 22 points of beam charge, you now need 18. So you need to heal 18% using a combination of synthesis and bulb moves, but the amount that you heal from most bulb moves has also been decreased. Up air and down air, which previously healed 7% and subsequently provided 7 points of beam charge, now heal 4%. Up throw now heals 3% compared to 6% and 3.6, and up smash now does 8% instead of 9%. Pummel and synthesis, both of which healed 1% and 3.6, remain unchanged. However, all of these moves no longer stale. Or rather, the damage done to the opponent will stale, but the amount that Ivysaur heals will not, which means that it is possible now to keep consistent track of how many points you are away from getting Beam or how close you are to Beam, rather than accounting for the staling formula if you're doing something like chain grabbing a spacey with up throw, or up airing a spacey multiple times. Really, most of this is relevant to spaceys, but it means that staling won't impact how many beams you have. And because the limit was decreased, even though we cut a lot of the healing amounts almost in half, which does reduce the amount that Ivy players will heal in any given game, we actually don't anticipate that it will drastically diminish how many beams we get per game, because we also reduced how much charge you need. You still heal the same amount, ideally between stocks, which for top players is somewhere between 5 to 8%. That now is a bigger proportion of the overall charge that you need, because you only need 18 instead of 24. Likewise, hitting a ladder combo like for up airs, even though those up airs do less individually, over time staling makes them do less. So if you get 4 up airs in 3.6, thanks to the staling formula, you'll get 24 points of charge when you need 22. In P+, it would give you 16 points of charge out of 18. So you heal significantly less, but you're still quite close to Beam if you get 4 up airs, or if you get a couple of up throws as well, things like that. So the difference is something that we expect Ivy players will need to get used to, but I don't think it's gutting the character, and I do think that it is something that long term will be totally fine for Ivy players to adjust to. The main thing it does is it creates consistency for lower level players, because the healing between stocks or camping for synthesis can make up a larger part of the charge that you need to get Beam, so that you know you're going to get at least 1 Beam every game if you're doing something right. While reducing the amount of healing that top players like South are able to get from zero-to-deathing someone, and also healing 20 to 30% in that combo. So that's the intent behind that change. Combined with the damage nerfs to Solar Beam, I would say that overall Beam is definitely a slightly less potent move than it used to be, but it's still a great super move. It's still one of Ivy's best combo finishers. And really, this shouldn't drastically change how much the character plays. Our game plan will still be the same, it just functions a little bit differently than it used to. So those are all the changes to Ivysaur in Project Plus. I hope this video was helpful. Feel free to ask me questions in the comments about anything I went over that you want me to elaborate on, how I think certain things will play out for the character in the new meta, anything like that. You can get info about Project Plus on the subreddit r/SSBPM. It's a pinned post with explanations of what Project Plus is, where to find the changelog, the builds, the Discord, all of that. And so if your region is going to be running or testing Project Plus, then it's good to keep yourself informed on what's going on and how it will affect not only you, but the rest of the players in your community. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful, and let me know if you enjoyed it.